Uh,
Hey everybody. Well, I'm back and I have a really special person that I would like to introduce everyone to. His name is Lawrence. And Lawrence has been working with me and we've been working with different crystals. He's been doing a bunch of experiments with the DEEMS and different minerals and stones, and he's come up with some really amazing results. So I said we have to be on YouTube and tell everybody about this. And so here he is. Everybody here's an amazing man, Lawrence.
hey, Chris, how you doing? Um,
Wonderful.
yeah. Uh, well, I'm glad we've got this Zoom meeting going because it's very exciting what I'm seeing with the DEEMS device, and I've been involved in metaphysical things for 50 years.
Hmm.
When it gets down to the experiences that I had in my life and so on, I knew when they happened that they were experiences that were unusual, and I basically had my life saved a number of times during the Vietnam conflict, and it was so radical that even my buddies came up to me after it happened and said, I saw you fly through the air, and what took place? How are you doing this? And I had to explain, I had no idea. But
Wow.
either here or there, in the long term, from the time I was 12 years old, I was involved with stones, minerals. I would go out to the sand pits in Nebraska, and that's where they would dig up sand and rocks and use those in roadways and cement and so on. And I would sit on piles of rocks all day long and pick out rocks that were interesting to me. And I got jaspers and agates and all different kinds of agates, and it was quite amazing. And I just learned to love it. And my whole life, I've loved gemstones and minerals. And over time, I trained myself to cut gemstones. So uh, I used to cut gemstones and sell them and all of that kind of thing. So I'm involved, very familiar with sapphire and emerald and ruby and diamond. So each one of those stones have to be cut in a certain way in order for them to show their brilliance. And the way they do that is if you cut the angles perfectly correct, the you want the light to be shown back to your eye. And for example, a diamond that's perfectly cut, you will see all colors of the rainbow coming out of the diamond. And just because all of those angles were cut at the correct angle. So, um, but while I was doing this, I noticed that each stone had, over time, I noticed that each stone had a special energy. And you can have two diamonds here. This one might be from Africa, and this one could be from Australia. And they have different energies from them. For example, the Australian diamonds are pink. Not all of them, but the majority out of the largest mine there are pink diamonds. It's the only place in the world that they have a deposit of pink diamonds. Once in a while, they'll find a pink one in another deposit someplace, but it's very, very rare.
Hmm.
And a red diamond is the most valuable diamond you can get your hands on. And those are found actually in a number of places in the world. So those two stones can have different energies. And you say to yourself, well, why? Well, a diamond is created about 150 miles below the surface of the earth. And the reason for that is that that's where carbon is. Pure carbon is down in that area. And it takes tremendous pressure to exert against the carbon to create a diamond, over 1,000,000 pounds per square inch.
Hmm.
So it has to be in an area that that kind of pressure can be exerted on it by the earth. So it's, and a diamond, its energy is so pure. It mainly has to do with how it affects the head and consciousness, which is very interesting
Mhm.
because and that's the hardest stone there is. Actually, it's the hardest mineral or hardest thing on the planet.
Right.
It's a Mohs hardness of 10. Now, the one stone that's underneath that, that's also a precious stone, is the sapphire. So, and the next one is a ruby. Well, a ruby is nothing more than a sapphire that has more chromium in it, and that's what makes it red. And then you have emerald. So there are four stones that all exhibit extreme beauty and extreme frequency. You can measure the frequency of stones, and it's extremely high, probably higher than most things that we find around us. So
Right.
they can have significant uh, effects on our consciousness. And so I noticed that when I was cutting the stones, and the more I worked with it, the more I found that this was true of many, many gemstones. But the four precious ones are pretty significant, what they can do. So,
Right.
and we found, you and I have been experimenting with these other four stones that we found, and uh, those four are alabaster, which is one that you would never think would would have the energy it does, but it is significant. It's probably one of the most energetic stones that we've used on the DEEMS that I've seen yet.
Well,
And the other ones are apophyllite. You find that in India. It's a crystal. It's a fairly it comes the crystals can be very small and they can be large, but generally the ones we use well, always the ones we've used on the DEEMS are smaller, but they're hard to, if you start to grind one and shape it a little bit, maybe to fit the hole in the magnet, it'll just fall apart.
hmm.
So right now we're just holding them by our finger, while we're using it on us. But I think I've got a way of doing that now that we can produce to go along with the DEEMS that'll hold a crystal like that, and some of these others. And then we've got shungite that comes from Russia. It's a very black stone, but it's highly energetic. And there's a difference in the way that it feels, and that uh, the way you feel the energy
Mhm.
in terms of how it's shaped. You can't just use a pyramid with it. The other shape is an obelisk,
Mhm.
which is interesting
Yeah.
because an obelisk was used by the Egyptians,
Right.
along with pyramids, of course, the pyramid shape, and alabaster was used by the Egyptians. It
Yeah.
seems to me that it's very interesting that that race used these minerals, and they used it in their homes, like alabaster. They used it in plates and vases and all of that, and it's not a particularly hard stone.
No.
It's fairly soft. And then now shungite's fairly new. That's the black stone. And
Right.
it seems to have a very smooth energy that comes in. It almost feels like a wave of mist
Hmm.
when it hits you. it's just, very nice. And it's like I've started to use it when I'm treating people with it, that uh, as the last stone in the list of the four stones, because they'll start out with like the apophyllite, and then they'll go to the alabaster, and then to the shungite, or they might go to the trollit, Trollit, I believe it is. That is a very new stone, very new, and it's highly, highly energetic. It's not easy to get it, but there's more of it coming out now, and I know that I just put a piece of it on my third eye, and brother, it just opened the frontal cortex. It just went whoop like that, and then the energy moved around to the back of my head, and it just was amazing, the feeling I got there. And I've been
Wow.
working on consciousness for 50 years, and it was so different. I don't think I've ever had that feeling before.
Wow.
It was very concentrated, so on. So anyway, those are some of the stones. I mean, there's hundreds of them,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
and there's gemstones are so beautiful, and they affect us in a really great way, and we need to use them.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like the plants that are here to affect us. Most of the drugs that are made just by the drug companies come from plants.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They just
It's all
concentrate
natural.
them to death,
Yeah.
but
They
instead of
desiccate them and send them out. Yeah.
exactly, that's right. Right, right, exactly. Yeah.
But
So
the interesting thing about these stones are that, for people that don't understand exactly how they work, I mean, first of
yeah,
all, nobody really can remember exactly how they work. I mean, because we
yes,
don't have all those memories back. But the
correct.
fact is that a lot of these minerals and crystals, especially diamond and the gemstones, are so packedly dense molecularly and in such an order, which
Right.
causes them to be crystalline.
Yes,
Light and energy goes through it and it's just enhanced and just focused, and so you get,
correct.
it's like a funnel, a
Yes,
vortex again, coming from the stone.
right. That's correct. And here's another thing that I found out, because I started my own jewelry business for a while, and I had that going until 2008, so I shut it down because everything went down. But it was interesting because I noticed that, well, it's what I found out is there's a process by which someone can have a astrologic uh, reading that will tell them the best gemstone that they should use.
Mhm.
An example is my wife is a Leo. She was born in August. So in the American system, as a Leo, they say, oh, you should have a ruby. Well, if you go to the Indian Jyotish system, which is over 5,000 years old, they look at everything. They look at the date of birth, time of birth, place of birth, and they can tell you many things about your astrologic chart. So many things that it's just mind boggling.
Mm.
They can actually, a good astrologer who is well versed in that technology can give you a reading that will tell you what's going to take place every day of your life in a year. I've seen that happen.
Oh, wow, that's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. But they also can tell you the gemstone you should have. And the first thing they've said with my wife, not only one, but I think we've had 2 or 3 astrologers who told us, no, she should never touch a ruby.
Hmm.
The stone she needs is a yellow sapphire, which is amazing. And a yellow sapphire works for her.
Wow.
I had another person who wanted me to find out what their gemstone should be. And when she was married, her husband, actually engaged, her husband bought her a blue sapphire. And in a short period of time, basically, she lost the blue sapphire ring, just lost it, like it walked away from her.
Hmm.
And she got another one, same thing happened. And so that's what she told me. And so I looked it up. Again, she should never touch a blue sapphire. It should be a yellow sapphire.
Hmm.
So she told her husband that. He went and bought her a yellow sapphire, and she absolutely loves that ring, wears it all the time, and it has, she felt, has changed many things in her life.
Yeah.
So there is a technology out there that people believe works. I believe it because I've seen it. I've seen it
Yeah.
happen. It's happened with my family. And so everybody has a resonant frequency.
Yes.
We each have our own frequency, that there is a point of resonance
Yes.
that can create a standing wave. So when you get a resonant frequency, well, for example, there's an energy field, you know, in the third dimension, we have a specific uh, way that frequencies move throughout this dimension.
Mhm.
So most, well, all frequencies that are created in this dimension, when they hit matter, they move around it. When they move around the matter, the energy is depleted. Okay. But there is a type of frequency called a scalar wave.
Mhm.
Scalar waves are created in the fifth dimension. And I have a program that I've put on my computer that creates scalar waves. And I won't go into the detail of how they're created, but I know how that happens. And those frequencies in the third dimension move through any matter that they hit, including a human body.
Right.
So when they move through the human body, they affect every cell in the body with their frequency. So that can actually be significant in the healing process. Even medical industry is starting to use that technology.
Right.
Yeah.
And
And
then go ahead.
so it's very interesting when you get into the science of this. Scalar waves are extremely powerful. And it's interesting. You see a particular type of cloud formations above mountains.
Mhm.
One in particular that you see all the time is pictures of Mount Shasta.
Right.
There are these flat circular clouds that look like flying saucers, you
Yeah.
know, that they'll sit on top of each other above the mountain. And that is created from scalar waves that come right out of the top of the mountain. So when you go on a hike and you hike all day and come back and you feel so revived and so energetic, that's because you have been hit with scalar waves that are naturally occurring in our out of doors.
Right.
And
Which is
all,
amazing.
yeah, it's amazing.
Excuse
And
me.
yeah, and our um, even our sun, the energy from the sun is scalar. It's all scalar. So we have a, you might say, a connection with that energy source. And it's interesting that it's created in the fifth dimension.
Mm.
That's the dimension we're trying to get to at this point in time, fourth and fifth, you know.
Mhm.
So it's very, very interesting. And so in many of the treatments that I help people with, we use scalar waves. Yeah.
Now let's talk about that a little bit, about some
Uh-huh.
of your research and some of the, some of your clients and some of the things you've been actually doing for many years,
Yeah.
you know.
Um, well, let's see. Where do I start here? Well, I developed a bed that uses scalar energy,
Mhm.
and I have treated people on that. I don't know, maybe I don't know how many, but a lot of people on it, and it uses quartz crystals and light
Mhm.
along with the scalar fields. So I plug in to that table a program that has many different healing modalities for potential mental, spiritual problems that people might have.
Mhm.
And uh, so, along with it, I also use headphones that, whenever the scalar fields come through the lights, they also come into sound, into a sound frequency that they use, that I use on the table. So I've sold a number of these tables, and had very good results with people that use them. And so, interestingly, that information on how to build a table came to me. I would get up every night at 2:30 to 3 o'clock, and I could not go back to sleep unless I sat down to meditate.
Mm.
For some reason, I couldn't do it. And every time I'd sit down to meditate, immediately information would come into my mind on how to build this table. Where that information came from, I have no idea. But the more I am involved with the detail of our interaction with aliens,
Mhm.
I'm not so sure that's didn't isn't where it came from. And I know you and I've talked about it,
Yeah.
because I've always felt that the table didn't have everything that I really needed to heal things instantly.
Mhm.
But we've got some ideas on how to do that. And so that's something that I think we'll continue with.
Yeah.
Uh, and The software that I use is just phenomenal. Um, and you can turn on scalar waves or turn them off and use just the standard wave frequency, like a harmonic wave or sine wave, whatever.
Mhm.
And you can pick what you want. That software is very, very good. It was written by a friend of mine who lives in Las Vegas, Nevada, and he just sells the software, and it's just amazing, absolutely amazing. It's phenomenal. And interestingly enough, when I was looking for somebody to write software, I went online, and he was the first guy that I called. First guy. And when I called him on the phone, I told him why I wanted to do this, because it was just bugging me to death. And so from everything I found out during those dream states, you might say, or channeling this during meditation, I designed all the pods, and they're pretty sophisticated in how they're put together and so on. And so anyway, I know there's more to do on that.
And is
So,
that software you said that people can actually, they can download that and buy that?
oh yes, yeah, they can purchase the software. It's made by a company by the name of Biztronics, Biztronics. And I know the man that has that company. He sold this software for years and years. And I know there's many medical people who are using it.
Wow.
Yeah. So it can be extremely effective.
And they just use headphones and listen to it?
Yeah. They
Wow,
just use
it's
headphones.
pretty simple.
Yeah, pretty simple. And
yeah, because I know we talked about integrating that somehow into, because you have it in the bed that you're
yes,
still developing and working on, and
yeah, correct. Yeah,
trying to look in how to use that with the DEEMS too, and
yes,
see if we can possibly use that vortex and create
correct.
some sort of sonic
That's
device.
correct. Yes, yeah. And I think we can do that pretty easily. Mm-hmm. So, everything when you're developing something like this, your DEEMS device is amazing. It works very well. And my background is engineering, mechanical engineering. I did a lot of engineering for different companies, worked for other companies for years. And I think probably you could say it was more product design, and manufacturing design of processes to help the efficiency of building something in manufacturing, so that you could get it out fast enough and decrease the cost as much as possible to decrease the cost to the people
consumer.
Consumer. And so, but along with it, I've had a number of other modalities that I've used to help people out. And I'm familiar with color therapy. I don't go into that a lot because it's very sophisticated, and there are people that don't like that here, mainly government people. So I don't get into that real heavily. But there's broadcasting technology that's interesting. And I just recently found on your Telegram site that there were a number of people that have given me a lot of information on how to use the DEEMS, and I think it's really good for anybody to get into that and read what's going on there. And there were some people who were using it for distance healing. Distance healing works.
Very much so.
Absolutely, it works. I've done it, and I remember one lady who had a cough for 3 months, and she was really getting worried about it. And I did some distance healing on her, and once she got it, 3 days later, it was gone. And she had been to 3 different people who gave her antibiotics, didn't work at all. And her daughter had the same problem, and she was cured in 3 days.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So
actually, if you don't mind, I think you've recently used the DEEMS, and you in trying different stones with some of the your regular customers, clients. If you don't mind sharing some of that, because it's sure. Amazing.
Yeah. Let me see. The first lady, I've known her for 7, 8 years, and she's very, very psychic. Uh, she's the only person that I know that can go into the Akashic records right now and look at any person she wants and know what's in their background, in their life stream. And she's very accurate. Um, but she came in and I asked her to use if she would want to use this, and she says sure, she'd like to try it. And she was really amazed at how she felt the energy. It came on slowly, but as it came on, she could feel it throughout her entire body. She said, I can feel it everywhere. And she'd start to giggle as she was using it and laugh. And when I first met her, she was not a very happy person. And over a period of about 7 years, her whole consciousness changed. And once she got the DEEMS device, she's been over here for 3 weeks in a row now, every week, treating herself with a DEEMS device, and she just loves the energy from it and how it has made her feel. And I think it was the second week she had the feeling of the energy for a full week.
Wow.
And then I have another person that I've treated who she actually had some physical problems, and she wasn't able to get any of it fixed, and she was really getting worried about herself. And so I had her try it out. And the day she came over, she had the main problem was that she had a issue with breathing. She all of a sudden she couldn't breathe. It was almost like somebody who had oh a massive
In,
lung problem.
yeah, emphysema or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And she's never smoked in her life. She hasn't been around smokers in her life. Her husband doesn't smoke. And so when she came over, she had pain in her left lung. And she started with the apophyllite crystal. And after about 10 minutes, she said, wow, where the pain is in my left lung, she said, the energy is just hitting that now, and my lung is getting really hot, really hot. And I said, do you feel all right? I said, do you want to stop? She said, no, I want to continue this. There's definitely something going on here. And this went on for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then she said, my pain is gone. It's completely gone. And she said, now my lung is cool. It's not hot.
Hmm.
And it feels really good, really good. And so she was told by another person who very psychic and highly evolved that this whole problem was created by a trauma in her life, and she needed to think about it to see if she could figure out what the trauma was. And she got pretty healthy after that for about, I would say, 6 to 8 months. And then she started having the problem again breathing. So that's when she started using the DEEMS device. So the second time she came, let me see, was it the second? No, excuse me, the first time she came after after the lung was healed, all of a sudden she tilted her head to the other side of her body, to the right side, and I could see this anguish on her face. And she started telling me, she had her eyes closed all this time, that she was using the DEEMS device. And she started to tell me that she was in a really dark place and she didn't know where she was at, but she knew she could not get out of it. And I immediately felt this is a past life problem. I didn't say anything to her. And she said she started to cry and have, tears, but it was didn't last very long. But she still felt in this dark place. And then she said, I feel that there's a huge eye that's looking at me. And I don't know where that's coming from. So then she said, oh, all of a sudden this little spot has opened up. And I can look out almost like it's a little hole I can look out of, but there's no light. There's no light coming through it other than maybe just a pinpoint. And then she said, oh, it's getting a little larger, a little more light, but I still don't know where I'm at. And then all of a sudden, this went away. And when she stopped using the DEEMS, she was using the DEEMS for an hour, 1 full hour. She stopped and said, oh, I'm okay now. I said, do you feel any pain? She said, no, all the pain's gone and I can breathe like it's a morning air. And so she got up and was ready to leave. She was putting on her shoes. And I said, well, how do you feel? She said, I feel like I'm 10 feet tall and I'm a balloon. Like I'm just weightless. She said, I have so much energy. And I called her a couple of times during the week, and every time she told me, I still feel the energy in me from using the DEEMS device. She felt it for a full week. And I treated her again today, this morning. And she went through the same process again. And now she had a problem with her right lung. And it went through that process in her right lung. And she told me, she said, I feel as though I'm being physically beaten up. And it's just terribly painful. And I said, well, if it's too painful, stop. She said, no, I'm going to stay with it. I'm going to stay with it. And the more she stayed with it, the less it got. And then she went away from that dark place where people were torturing her and everything. Then again, she said, my lung was hot. And now it's cool. So when she finally stopped using the DEEMS device, she said, you have saved my life. And I didn't say anything just because I didn't want to get into that. It was, when it gets down to it, she was willing to sit down with the device. So the device was what did it. It wasn't anybody else. But she just loves it. And so she signed up to go to the symposium. She's going in October.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The
she'll
JISC
be
conference.
there.
Yeah.
She'll be there. I'll introduce
Okay.
you to her.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a great, great gal. Yeah. And very funny. She's got a great sense of humor, so Uh, and I have another friend who is a airline pilot. And she taught me how to fly because I love to fly, but I don't do it anymore uh, just because it's so expensive. But she has a personality which is that of an impatience. She's shaking and moving all the time. Very intelligent woman, and she was a great instructor. I learned how to fly an airplane from her, you know, really quickly, and she did a great job. So most of the time, like if I'm treating somebody on the table, which is over here, uh, an impatience will say to you, you'll tell them, well, the treatment's about 45 minutes. And they'll say, okay. And then they'll lay down and put a blanket on them and so on. And then about 10, 15 minutes later, they'll go, are we done yet? That's why an impatience can be very difficult to deal with because their mind is constantly, in thought.
Mhm.
So interestingly enough, let's see, I treated her on Monday. Yeah, this week. It was Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday. And so she used the apophyllite crystal, which was really interesting. About 10 minutes into it, she's got her eyes closed and she says to me, this is amazing. She said, this is the first time in my life that I have had no thoughts with this crystal. She said, it feels so good. And she just held that crystal there for 30 minutes. And she came back again the next day and used the DEEMS device. And it was, she said, it's different every time. She says, I have thoughts with the apophyllite crystal today, but with this crystal, which was the shungite, she said, wow, this is just like a wave coming over me. And she just loved the energy from it. So everybody feels energy from this device differently, but that's what makes it beautiful also.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Life is not a garden of roses. It's a garden with every kind of flower in it that you can imagine.
And
And
weeds.
weeds, that's right.
They're all there.
They're all there, and they each have their essence. You can sit down and look at a weed, and it, at a very close look at it, it's very beautiful.
Oh yeah.
You know, so I think that it's wonderful that the DEEMS works like it does because it's simple. You aren't hooked up to a bunch of electrical wires or anything like that, but it still has the potential
Right.
of being improved. And
Oh
I know
yes.
that we've talked about it, where we can go with it. And I think we can do that in a, fairly quick manner. And hopefully maybe by the symposium, we can have some new stuff.
That's what we're hoping.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah, certainly at least have some things for people to try out, to test and see,
Yeah.
what the difference is. I mean, it's like really everything we do right now with the DEEMS is still kind of research,
Yeah. Right. Right. It is. I think you're right. And it's just an amazing device. Its simplicity is quite surprising to me. And
Well, all of my memory from being off planet and even past lives, all of my memory when it comes to really high technology, things that we would consider, phenomenal, amazing, impossible, it's all
Yeah.
crystals and magnets in some form or fashion.
There you go. Yeah, right, right. And uh, crystals, actually all matter, is composed, when you get down to the finest particles of that matter, it's composed of what they call platonic solids.
Hmm.
There's 5 platonic solids. This is one of them. It's a dodecahedron. Okay, I made this out of paper because I wanted to feel it and
Yeah.
get in. But a dodecahedron is highly complex, but it is one of the platonic solids that you can find in certain minerals. Other minerals, like a diamond, is an octahedron. That's a pyramid base to base. A pyramid on this side, a pyramid on this side. That's an octahedron. And diamonds, you can find those as small octahedrons. Okay. And a large one would be nice, but anyway, you can find it as small ones. And but you can also find triangles as tetrahedrons as diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
So a diamond can exhibit a number of platonic solids. And that's interesting. Brings on another conversation, which has to do with time crystals. Those were recently found by physicists, and I could have a long talk about that. And these time crystals are amazing because they know that the time crystals that they made with a quantum computer. They physically made them with a quantum computer, and I think they used, I'm not sure all the minerals they used, but anyway, they found that once these were made, if they were to hit one of the time crystals with a laser beam, that's an input of energy, the time crystal automatically changed its crystal habit and its atomic structure without destroying it. The atomic structure is changed. Now, there's some talk that they have proven that a time crystal could be created that automatically changes its atomic structure without an outside input of energy. It will periodically change it. Bing, bing. Now, it's interesting they called them time crystals.
Yeah.
Now,
does the crystal, the physical structure end up changing ultimately?
Yes.
Or is it
Yes.
does?
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be an ultimate change. It's like it periodically changes on its own with this new hypothesis, from what I understand. And I might be all wet, but I thought that's what I read.
Wow.
So I think it's
throw one of those in a DEEMS device and see what happens.
Really. I'm telling you, that's exactly right. Yeah. There's some real heavy things we can talk about on that.
Yeah.
And that gets into the thing that I was talking to you about today, that I found in the Book of Enoch. That's really amazing. Yeah.
That's hours all by itself. And that's just, it blew my mind before I had, and it was this strangely enough, it all made sense at the same time.
Yes, it does.
It all comes down to the pineal gland, and
that's exactly right. Yeah.
The crystalline structure of those calcite crystals in our own brain.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's just, it's something else.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I don't know. I think we covered things, haven't we?
I think it's a pretty good introduction, to what we're working on.
Yeah, right. Well, I hope I imparted some information for people that can kind of get them interested in
Yeah.
minerals and crystals, and they
And
should.
list those the four new crystals
Yeah.
we've been talking about, just
Yeah.
so people can maybe
Alabaster.
look them up. Okay.
Yeah. Alabaster, shungite, apophyllite, and this trolite. I'm not sure I've got the spelling right. I think TROLL. I think it's IET.
Yeah, I forget.
That's
Yeah,
a very
it's something
new.
like that.
Yeah, it's a very new material, and it's highly energetic. Highly energetic. Yeah. Matter of fact, the lady that I treated this morning with the DEEMS device used that as the very last crystal, and she said, "Oh my gosh, it's like I'm being wrapped with a beautiful blanket.
Hmm.
I'm being wrapped with a blanket of energy by this crystal."
Wow, I
Just
think we'd all like that.
yes,
Gosh.
yeah, right, exactly.
And just so everybody that is viewing this knows, that these are things that we're looking to actually integrate in the
Yes,
future, with the
yes,
DEEMS. So those things will ultimately
yeah,
be available. So just we
that's
just want to
correct.
share that information, and and Lawrence is doing all this amazing research, for it, so that we can bring some new stuff to everybody, because it's all about consciousness, and all about opening it in layers. And the more we learn, and the different types of minerals and stones and such that we use, and the different methods of applying things, it only enhances humanity. And so that's
That's
our goal.
exactly, that's a goal. That's
Yeah,
exactly right. It's when it gets right down to it, I think in my life I finally figured out what I really want to do, and that's help humanity. To
oh,
me, there's nothing better, and without the desire to have anything in return, that's not there. That's not in the program.
right.
I just whatever I can find out and help humanity with it, that's what I want to do. And I think that's what I know you're in that arena also.
Yeah,
And uh, so I think that it's just something that when you get a number of heads together figuring things out, we can figure out just about anything, you
right.
know. And I think we'll be able to do that, and we'll be able to bring some things to people who have the DEEMS device now and future users of it,
Yeah,
and maybe be able to enhance it more to where it can be more and more effective. Because it's
yeah,
all about the consciousness. We want to get our consciousness uh, into those higher states as quickly as possible.
I agree. Because it's all about the evolution of humanity,
Yes.
and us coming to this higher fourth density mindset.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So that's our goal. And
Okay.
everybody, this was Lawrence.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty amazing guy, so
Oh,
we'll do some more together as we kind of learn more about all of this that we're talking about, and we'll share the
you bet.
information as it goes. So
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, that sounds great, and
yeah,
it's great to talk to you. And it'll be great for everybody that hears the
yeah,
podcast here, the Zoomcast, and uh, if they have any questions, you know, just feel free to contact me over the
on the Telegram, or
Telegram.
email, or whatever you'd
Yeah,
like. You just
right, right,
send
right.
me, if you want me to add something to description for people to
Sure.
contact you, just send it to me, and I'll
Okay,
type it in there.
okay, I'll do that. Yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
All right.
Well, don't go away yet, but I will say goodbye to everybody else.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
See you guys.
Yeah.